What is going on, everybody? Welcome back to the channel. Aftersound here, bringing you Splinterlands content every single day. We also stream right here on this channel every Tuesday, Thursday, and Sunday morning, so come by and say hello. This video is also brought to you by two things. Since we don't do any sponsorship here on the channel, I'll go ahead and show them out real quick. The first is my music, which is available anywhere you stream music under the name Aftersound, and the second is a new podcast I just launched on my YouTube music channel called Chasing Infinity. It is myself and ChatGPT as my AI co-host, so check it out. Links in the description, and I appreciate the support. All right, let's go ahead and jump into this video, which is the 5 biggest takeaways from the recent DAOn haul with CRYPTOMANCER. So actually, Matt was on there as well. Most of the notes, most of the takeaways I have are probably from Matt, so I should probably update that. But it was the one, we set this up. It was following the CRYPTOMANCER proposal, or the proposal for the DAO to take over CRYPTOMANCER's salary. And so this is, this was good. I appreciate them taking the time, both CRYPTOMANCER and Matt. Before we even jump into it, CRYPTOMANCER spent the first, 10, 15 minutes, talking about his qualifications and how he came to the game, all of which is fantastic. None of which I thought was necessary, right? I don't think anybody, maybe there's one person here in the chat who's a CRYPTOMANCER hater, right? But most everybody else knows what CRYPTOMANCER has done for the game, how he feels about it, and how much he wants it to succeed. So I was listening to that. I'm like, this feels like fluff, but I get it. CRYPTOMANCER may not, people may not know him, so he's got to do this. But we got into the meat of it. We got into actually quite a bit once Matt started speaking about this a little bit more. And CRYPTOMANCER actually gave a solid kind of outline of what he's working on, what is done and completed, and I'm actually going to do that in a separate video because I think that was completely separate. We could have covered it here, but there was actually quite a bit more that was in the DAOn haul. So let's go ahead and jump right in. Number one, we found out that there were more cuts recently. So some people or person, I don't know, but people were let go and salaries were reduced further. So there wasn't a big announcement about it. They didn't do a post. It seems like it was something that was obviously not as big as the last two. But, this was Matt trying to make a situation, make a bad situation slightly better. And again, I don't know any details. I don't know who got canned or what the situation was. I'm going to leave them their privacy. Like I said, I still have some connections with the team. I still chat with them from time to time, but I was not aware of this until Matt said it on the on the DAOn haul. But whoever it was and whatever the situation is, I genuinely wish them the best of luck and see where things go. So that was obviously not great news, and I can see why the team wouldn't necessarily want to publicize that if they didn't need to, but Matt did talk about it. And again, I said this in a comment during the DAOn haul. I'm going to keep getting them confused, but I tagged him in it, but I want to say it again. I appreciate his transparency because Web3 or not, it's hard to find any project where you have this type of transparency, and you'll see what I'm about to get into. So number two, Matt actually gave us the monthly cash flow. Now, what's interesting is that the expenses, he's saying now at 250K, this is where he's at with the recent cuts, as well as assuming they can get CRYPTOMANCER off the books. I was under the impression that 250K was kind of the baseline that we had at the beginning of the year. So there were probably some other things that popped up, or maybe 250K was just a guess, right? Because or not a guess, but just a rough estimate. Because if you think about it, yes, 250K, but CRYPTOMANCER is 15K-ish a month, right? So, that would have been 265. I probably would have rounded to about 250K as well if people were asking at that time, as costs can go up and down, based on actually someone like CRYPTOMANCER who doesn't have the same hours every month. But we actually got a look into where revenue is at. And that's at about 150K. But as Matt reminded us, this is lumpy, right? They got a huge amount of it early on with the Rebellion sale. And again, here's the difficult part with this, right? So you look at the 1.5 million packs that Matt had wanted to sell. And this is why I keep harping on the 1.5 million, right? Because if we had actually sold 1.5 million packs at 2,000 DEC, and assuming DEC is pegged, none of that is happening, right? We didn't sell 1.5 million and DEC is not a peg. But in that perfect world, in that perfect scenario, that's $3 million. $3 million divided by 12 covers expenses of 250K per month. So I'm looking at that. I'm just like, man, Rebellion, it's depegging DEC was awful with the LP proposals we made, with the decision for the team to remove the again, they had to do it, right? The DEC faucet of Gladiator cards, but I don't know. It's rough because that's made the entire year even worse for them in many ways. But you look at where revenue is at now, and again, this includes, like I said, it's lumpy, right? So this will include probably what they made during the sale. Sorry, not the Bitcoin halving promo sale, and then of course the 600 million DEC that they got for the Hall of Legends promo, right? Which again, at peg, that's $600,000, but obviously we haven't been anywhere close to peg in probably half a year at this point, which is kind of scary and kind of sad. But that's where the monthly cash flow is, and so they're trying to find ways in which they can either reduce expenses even further and obviously increase their revenue with either a mini set or the Hall of Legends. Well, Hall of Legends is paid for already, but or the future core set. And so Matt said he doesn't want to be chasing, unlike how things were previously. And I don't know that this is necessarily a shot at Aggie. I think it's just they were trying to maintain something, right? Instead of just trying to do sales constantly to like raise funds, right, to cover salaries and whatever, he just wants to get to an equilibrium point. And if that means reducing staff or cutting costs or whatever, he's just trying to get to an equilibrium point where they can just have a baseline. And it's not like, hey, we need to go into sell mode every month or every couple of months in order to keep the lights on. We need to get to a point where we can reduce expenses enough that whatever the player base here is willing to spend, and the money that they're able to make from all of the sales and things that they do, it's not a matter of like, oh my gosh, we need to get cash. Right? we need to get cash in one way, shape, or form. Now, one thing I didn't include here, but I'll talk about it anyway, was he did talk about the fact that their treasury holds a good amount of crypto, specifically Bitcoin, right? And what he doesn't want to be doing is selling that treasury, especially not right now, which makes sense. And I don't know if like in the future they plan to diversify some of their treasury, but you can understand that had they been selling their treasury starting in 2022 when the first round of layoffs were, that would have been a terrible time, right? Bitcoin was 16K. It's since done like a 4x, right? And even last year, it's up a significant amount as well, probably 2.5x or whatever it is, right? We were in like the mid 20s ish, I think, last summer. So, he's looking at that and saying it was a good idea to hold that. And, obviously even now it's not a good idea to sell in his opinion, because he thinks 2025 is going to be another massive year. If you follow the 4-year cycle or just see where M2 money, liquidity is headed. But, that's a topic for another video if we even want to dive into that. Either way, we're all somewhat bullish on 2025 in many ways, right? With Bitcoin leading the charge. So that would make sense that he doesn't want to start liquidating whatever Bitcoin they have. And also, he doesn't want to be dipping into the treasury unless it's absolutely necessary. So the idea is they're just trying to reduce expenses across the board. So obviously, we're all hoping things change in the next 6 to 12, 18-ish months. But that's just where they're at. And once again, I appreciate the transparency here of how their revenue, and again, 150K is like the average, right? Lumpiness included, average versus the expense of 250K. So even with that, they're 100K in the hole. And my understanding is they have, I don't know, I forgot how much he said, but like, several months or until like maybe Q1 of next year, mid Q1 of next year, that they don't have to worry necessarily about covering that difference, which means like in the meantime, they're going to find ways to raise money in terms of either a mini set or the next core set, and potentially even pulling a decent amount of that from the DAO with some kind of collaborative deals that they've done, a la Hall of Legends, a la Rebellion. So speaking of which, let's get into number 3, because this was an important revelation, which I've been hinting at for a while, kind of guessing, but Matt said it flat out. And I think it's important for people to understand this now. He said whales have reached out to him wanting to buy things, right? The whales want to spend money. And I know, here's the thing, this is the trouble we get into because the player base has a long tail, right? It's an 80-20 rule where 20% of the player base is spending 80% of the money, right? But then you get 80% of the player base that's kind of whining about the fact that all the stuff is just made for whales, or that whales are going to come and dominate the entire thing. But this has to be more of a symbiotic relationship. And this is what I'm trying to get at here. If the whales want stuff, if the whales want to buy things, let the team make it, because that offers whales to be happy, right? Because they get cool exclusive stuff. The team gets to keep the lights on, right? And if we want to participate in one way, shape, or form, we can. Now, obviously, from a game standpoint, I understand it's difficult to keep up with the meta if you can't have every single card. We all know that. And this is one of the, I don't even know if I want to call it flaws of Splinterlands or Web3 gaming, right? But this is the nature of the game, and it always has been the nature of the game. So if you've been here multiple years and you're not with it yet, like I don't know if it's like the definition of insanity where you think things are going to change, right? Where all of a sudden it's just going to be egalitarian and everybody gets free cards and everybody gets the same level. We don't have that. I want to build it. Don't get me wrong. I want to build it. A competitive scene where skill is the only factor, but the core gameplay, right? Ranked gameplay is always going to be the more cards you have, the more options you have, the better your skill set is, right? You combine all those things and you'll just do better. You'll go further in the game and earn more in the game. And that's just what it is. So getting back to this, getting back to the whales wanting to buy things, I think that's super important to recognize. Super, super important to recognize. And if that's the case, it just goes to show that there are whales here, that there are people with deep pockets. And I know they're going to get criticized and be like, oh, whales are propping up the economy and, whales are just trying to give a false narrative, whatever. I mean, however you want to spin it, you can try to spin it negatively. I don't think you can, right? I think the most negative way that you could spin it is that whales are trying to help keep the lights on, which even if you say that, again, like that comes to me as somewhat neutral, or at least not any more negative than we've already known, right? The company has had cash issues and cash flow issues, and the whales are here willing to spend on it, meaning you have diehard believers, or maybe they're pot committed, right? And they want to see this game succeed, not just survive, but succeed in the long run. So I get it. If you're here and you're throwing shade because you exited a while ago, and I mean, that's fine, right? You have no stake in it. Therefore, your comments also mean nothing, but I love you anyway. Thanks for commenting on the channel. And I always engage with you, right? I'm not trying to give you shit. I'm just saying that, like, in the grand scheme of things, you can understand why the company or the team would not necessarily care about that. But, if people do want to spend money, I'm of the camp, just let them do it. Just let them do it, and the team can find ways in order to satisfy that, help keep the lights on, because at the end of the day, if you hold SPS, if you're playing, even if you're a minnow or a dolphin, I don't even know what I would consider myself, right? But whatever level you're at, you stand to benefit from this game actually doing well in the coming 12 to 18 months, right? And beyond, ideally and hopefully. But, at this point, I don't think that there should be roadblocks. If the team wants to put stuff out that people want to buy, and the Hall of Legends, as much as you guys want to criticize it, it's sold over $100,000 worth. Well, I guess not with DAOn not at peg, but close to $100,000 worth of value for people. And we're not done. Like, I mean, everybody did that knowing that there's 4 more phases of this, right? So it is what it is. Let the whale spin. Number 4. I was surprised about this. Maybe not, but somebody had mentioned maybe we should just postpone land. And Matt wasn't necessarily against it. He's like, if they want to do that, if people want to do that, we can. He doesn't think it's a good idea. And here's the thing. I don't think postponing land is like this, let's postpone it indefinitely. To me, it's a kind of like what B. Jangles had been talking about, where, hey, all hands on board for new player experience. Get that done as quickly as possible, and let's get back to land like, early next year, right? That would be the idea. But any way that we could take CRYPTOMANCER's fantastic skills and put them towards new player experience would be phenomenal. If we can get new player experience done slightly faster, let's do it and then focus in on land. Obviously, I don't think that's going to happen, but I was surprised to hear Matt's flexibility. Again, he was saying we can put it to a vote and see how it goes. But I don't expect a lot of land barons to be on board with that. I mean, the news about land and how long it's going to take, probably Q1 of next year sometime, does suck. But, I think land barons are just in at this point, right? So they would rather see continuous, some kind of continuous production and development towards it rather than it being put on the shelf for a little bit. So again, I was just surprised at Matt's flexibility. Once again, it just goes to show that he is willing to listen to the community on a lot of things. But again, even if he agrees or disagrees with it, it's more so just to show that, he's trying to be as flexible and make this as much of a community run project as possible for better and for worse. And then number 5, for all the mobile fans out there, I thought that this was interesting. Matt said, obviously, they want to get a mobile version of the game finished and then wrap it as an app in the App Store. And apparently, the tech modernization that we've been hearing about for the last 2.5 years, that is... the tech modernization is almost done. It's just the battles page, I believe, that needs to be updated, or maybe 1 or 2 more pages that needs to be updated. So that's a huge thing, and I don't know when that'll be done. But as we talk about, getting a free to play version, and I don't know that this is necessarily free to play, but as we talk about getting a mobile version, something that's mobile friendly, and then obviously having something in the App Store would be huge. It's good to see that they still have this, on the radar. Now, is this going to happen like in the near future? I doubt it. I think they want to get it mobile friendly, which most of the site is mobile friendly at this point. But then probably until, I would guess at the earliest would be like end of next year, probably not even until 2026, when they can get, if we get into a position where the game does well during a bull run, they bring in a good amount of money, they can hire more developers, they can increase their speed and bring in good people to manage certain aspects of this. That's when they would do it. So to me, this is like a 2026 thing, which kind of upends the skips the next bull run. But either way, that's where it's at. A couple bonus items. So this has been floating around. Shout out to Brave Tofu about the adding in-game ads. Matt addressed this early on, said he doesn't think it will add value, that this is more so like a distraction of trying to chase revenue, see if it'll work, and then if it doesn't, it ends up being a waste of time. I mean, I get where he's coming from, but I also like the idea of maybe not even just ads, but, Bjangles, Brave Tofu, like all of them on X and Hive blog and all that, they're just trying to find ways to help the company increase revenue. And they're trying to offer suggestions of things that they wouldn't wouldn't mind, or B, would actively participate in, right? We've talked about battle passes. We've talked about, and shout out to Tails, who pointed this out fantastically, right? We talked about ads, we talked about battle passes, we talked about cosmetics and things. I mean, they are doing cosmetics, so hopefully that'll be cool. But, we're just trying to find ways to help the team. And it kind of sucks for it to get shut down that quickly and that easily. But at the same time, Matt's got the bird's eye view compared to everybody else. He's got the inside view, inside track. So, I get it. I'm sure his job isn't easy. And if it was, then, we wouldn't be in this position. And something else on the bonus side, Matt talked about no more project management, which again, I just thought was interesting. He and having had a peek behind the curtain a couple of years ago when I was doing more music stuff with the team, there are a lot of like meetings, which he's not a fan of. And he said like meetings just to talk about like deadlines or whatever. Now he's at a point where he's just like, I want to hire good people. And this is part of his case for like keeping CRYPTOMANCER on, rather than like going and finding somebody who could technically do it cheaper. But he wants to hire good people that have a stake or have an interest, that are, want the game to succeed, and then just let them do their thing. Like for him, and as CEO, I can imagine this is probably a huge weight off of his shoulders, where he says, CRYPTOMANCER, you work on land, and then Matt doesn't have to think about it anymore, right? Because he knows CRYPTOMANCER is going to go in and he's gonna bust his ass and do a great job, right? CRYPTOMANCER is highly incentivized to do it. He's been part of the team for a while. He wants to see this game succeed. So having that peace of mind in your the people that work for you is tremendous. So I get where he's coming from, and I get where this is all like, let's just get to a point where if he were to hire like a marketing person, it would be awesome if they could do the same thing, right? Come in, do your marketing. I know you're good at what you do. Make it happen, right? One less thing for him to worry about. And then lastly, we try to get a better idea of where new player experience is at. I've talked about this previously, but it was discussed again here. So the second half of this website almost finished. Again, that goes towards the fact that the tech modernization is almost completed, right? So updating all the code. And then the new player analysis is still just in the beginning phases, right? So I think even Royal Eagle jumped in and talked about some of the stuff in the chat where they're bringing in new players, trying to get immediate feedback, see what makes them stay, see what makes them leave, what are the things that they try to do. So all this stuff is very much in the beginning phases, which tells me that like, while we have some data, we don't have good data in the sense of there's nothing actionable about it. So even if we did have a marketing person, we have nothing to really work with in terms, well, and I'm being hyperbolic here, but like we don't have enough to work with in the sense of, where are people getting tripped up, right? So that the team can go and make some of those notations and change some of those things around and then, throw the gasoline on the fire of like, hey, we got people checking out the game. We've removed a lot of the roadblocks. So they're still in the identifying roadblocks area, which is a little disappointing because, again, I thought we'd have, marketing in full swing by this point in the year, but it is what it is, and that's where we're at. So hopefully this was helpful for you guys. I thought it was good to listen to, and actually I would recommend you go check it out. To me, this was better than a town hall in many ways because Matt was just on fire answering a bunch of questions. And I thought it was great. So hopefully he can do these more often. He's just able to explain himself better rather than typing out a bunch of things in the chat and waiting a month in between town halls and then having to do like a creative update. And like the town halls are very not performative. That sounds like I'm taking a shot at it. It's just like the town halls have this like format to it, and it's very like it's very produced. Where I kind of like when Matt just talks about like the future and the vision of the game, and to that point, I would say what I've appreciated the most about Matt, especially in this last one and what we've seen recently, is that he's become much more transparent in a lot of ways and just very forthcoming with a lot of information. And I don't envy his job. I don't envy like what he's had to try to do to make this thing work. But I after listening to it, despite all, I know I get a little crazy on here and a little cranky on here, but despite everything, after listening to it, I felt relatively good about where we're at, relatively good about the future of the game. I came away feeling somewhat bullish, right? Despite everything that's going on and knowing that Matt has a steady hand on this. And while we may have more turbulence in the future, I'm not necessarily worried about, I guess I'm not necessarily worried about like, what happens if the lights go off, things like that. So hopefully we'll see some positive things start to shake up soon in the second half of October here. But that is all I have for you guys in this video. Let me know your thoughts in the comments below. Otherwise, I'll catch you all in the next one and see you around the game. Take care.